Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is Sultan Abdullah Mzaini, and my presentation today is going to be about the difference between online classes and traditional classes. We're going to do like a little bit of a comparison here and there to hopefully end up with a good decision of which one is better than another. So let's talk a little bit about the background information of education. So education in the past wasn't as convenient as today's education. People in the past used to struggle when it came to getting educated because they didn't have enough materials. But fortunately, right now, we have the internet where we can access education at the comfort of our homes, and also we can access it anywhere in the world. So let's start by talking about the definition of online learning, which is also called distance learning. What is it and how is it performed? So it's an internet-based learning where students are required to have some sort of an electronic device to connect with their instructor to get educated or to get informed. So in short words, online learning is a learning that is done by using the internet. Let's also define traditional learning. What is traditional learning and how is it performed? It's a classroom-based learning where students are required to be physically in class and participate with the instructor. It's also called an active learning style where students also are, interacting with each other and learning by groups. And for now, let's talk about the history of online learning. So online learning first started in 1960 at the University of Illinois in Chicago. However, back then the internet hadn't been existed yet, so they used to learn by a computer terminal, the one that is appearing on the screen here. And also the first course was offered in 1984 by the University of Toronto. After 4 years from that, the University of Phoenix became the first educational institution in 1987. And for now, let's talk about some of the advantages and disadvantages of online classes. So online classes have their own pros and cons. So some of the pros, online classes tend to be more accessible. The students can access the class anywhere at any time they want, even if they are busy or working. So also, online classes tend to be more flexible. The flexibility in online classes is, or what makes online classes is really, compelling. For example, the students can always come back to a previous lecture and review it whenever they want to. Also, in terms of affordability, online classes tend to be more affordable than traditional classes because they don't require teachers or instructors to be physically in the class or in the school. But there are also some advantages of online classes, which are like the lack of face-to-face interaction, which lead some students to feel more isolated. And also, there are some technological issue that students always being faced with. Slow connections or poor internet connections. And also, online classes lead students to more distractions because they're not being watched by any teacher. So once they get any notification on their phone, they tend to grab it and scroll done over social media, which makes online classes a little bit inconvenient sometimes. And that will lead us to discuss some of the advantages and disadvantages of traditional classes. So some of the advantages of traditional classes, they tend to be more collaborative in learning, which makes students learn actively in groups, which eventually enhances their abilities or learning abilities. So also one of the advantages of studying in a traditional class is that students tend to feel more motivated in it because of the studying atmosphere. Also, the benefit of traditional class is that it leads some students to maintain interpersonal relationships, which eventually lead to more of that feeling of being connected. But also there are some disadvantages of traditional classes, which is, traditional classes tend to not offer flexibility. The flexibility in traditional classes is limited because what's being discussed in class cannot be reviewed unless it's offered by the teacher. As a result, the students are more likely to make a huge effort in interpreting information and taking notes. Also, traditional classes requires commuting, so students, put into consideration or will put into consideration when taking a class in college or school to commuting because it takes time. Also, one of the drawbacks of traditional classes is that it's limited in resources and the way of teaching. It's not as sophisticated as virtual classes. In summary, as we have been discussing along this presentation, that both traditional and online classes have their advantages and disadvantages, and the final decision is tied to a student's personal experience and preferences. For me personally, I believe that traditional classes tend to be more effective for me because of the interaction activities and the collaborative learning style. This is the end of my presentation. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.